Hello, and I greet you in the name of the King of Kings, Jesus. I am Austin, and I am the incumbent priest of the Boundary Parish, which is in the Anglican Diocese of Kootenay in British Columbia, Canada. And that means that I am the priest that serves the people of the town of Christina Lake and the city of Grand Forks and Greenwood, Midway, and Rock Creek, and all the areas, surrounding areas. I have been working with Father Leon of Creston on an idea that I think it's time to share with you. It started off as a series of really private conversations between the two of us as fellow priests about what this generation needs from the church. And there have been more people drawn into those conversations, and there has been a bunch of work that we have been doing to hone our ideas and to pull in other people's ideas behind the scenes. But I think it's time to now start sharing some of those ideas and details with you. And not necessarily in a super organized linear way, but I would like to start sharing various aspects of what we're trying to do here with you as they come up. And this is my first foray into sharing with you. I want to go back to my early 20s for a lot of reasons. It was a carefree and fun time. But one thing in my early 20s is I discovered roots reggae music, and I still love roots reggae. And it has grown on me for a bunch of reasons, but other than those really deep, dark, dubby bass lines and the Nyabingi drumming, one of the things I started to catch on to quite early on in listening to them was, well, I had been to, when I was a kid, I used to go off to the neighbors to the Baptist Sunday school. And then in my early 20s, I also, for whatever reason, was compelled to actually read the Bible cover to cover. And so I had been really engaging in the stories and absorbing a fair bit of them, fleshing out the really quite astounding amount I'd learned in Sunday school in retrospect. But one of the things that got me in the roots reggae is I'm listening to the lyrics and I'm thinking, these guys are quoting scriptures. As I started to investigate the scriptures they were quoting, their music took a deeper richness to me. So one of the things, those of you who are familiar with reggae music might recognize the language of Babylon that gets used all the time. So as a quick historic recap, Babylon was an ancient empire coming out of sort of the Mesopotamian area. Israel, the Israelites, had been trying to set up a society that was governed by justice, was governed by care for all, was an equitable sort of good society. They really had a bold vision for what society could be like. I'm not saying that they got everything represented everything that was wrong with human society. It was a society that really didn't care about the little people. If a few people got crushed so that there might be greater profits, like economic profits, we're not talking about profits that foresee the future, but people would get steamrolled in the interest of financial gain, in the interest of profit, in the interest of trade. Also, the Babylonians, and to some extent the Assyrians before them, took a kind of new industrial approach to agriculture that wasn't really typified by small-holding farmers caring for the land around them, but more about bulldozing everything and planting olive groves so you could set up industrial-sized olive presses for an imperial olive oil supply. you may be recognizing some of the ways in which Babylon still echoes down through the years. So it's funny, I've heard people in the church talk about how we were in a desert time, like when the Israelites were wandering around in the desert trying to figure out who they were. And I would argue that no, that's not the case at all. We are much more in a Babylonian time. We are God's faithful people, trying to figure out how to remain faithful and to remain righteous people, good people, within the context of a system that doesn't really uphold those values. So God's people over the years have encountered other systems that seem to value economic profit over life-giving relationships, that would sacrifice people and would sacrifice environments in the interest of making more money or making somebody more powerful or more famous. So they put essentially appetites and ego were made to be gods in these systems. And God's people have seen that echoed in various human systems over the years. The early Christians, when trying to live within the context of the Roman Empire, which wouldn't hesitate to crucify a few people to keep the order so that the goods could keep flowing, the money could keep getting made, who turned emperors into gods. The early Christians looked at this and said, this is exactly the kind of system that our Jewish predecessors were struggling with when they were living in Babylon. And so they would use the language of Babylon to subversively talk about this iniquitous empire of the Romans. And then further on down the road, the Rastafarians pick up the scriptures with a Christian background, and they look at what's going on around them with the empire that they're in, and they say, wait a minute, this British Empire is another Babylon. It has sold us into slavery in the interests of profit, has exiled us from our homeland, much like the Israelites were exiled, and places profit and ego above the needs of people and God's creation around it. It will happily sacrifice these things for more money. So the Rastas really picked up on this theme, and it really got me thinking. And as I look around at our modern context, I don't think they're wrong. In fact, I think now that the British Empire is dissolved, our modern global economic culture, I think Babylon is stretching further and has more influence than it ever has. And I don't think that we can argue that we live within a system in which, economic iniquity in the West was already increasing before COVID happened, and COVID just accelerated the gap between those who have tons of money and those who really don't have enough money. And I think we do okay here in Canada, but we're not immune to the system. And if we look at the news, I think we can definitely find people who are the have-nots that are getting steamrolled by this society, because it's always justification like, well, that'll cost too much money to take care of that or help those people. This is a fundamentally economic argument. This is Babylonian reasoning, not godly reasoning. And the other thing we can look at is not just the economic iniquity, but the fact that we're living rapidly careening into an environmental crisis. The climate is changing rapidly and dangerously, and we are also facing serious problems with environmental degradation on a bunch of other fronts. So if God put us here to lead the best life we could and to love and serve each other and to serve and tend the land, the system that we are within is not helping us do a great job of this. I think those of us that struggle with the system we're in and have tried to cut a better path have realized something, that it is very difficult for individuals to be able to make the real change in their life. I mean, you can buy green, you can walk to work, but as long as you're living within our system, it's going to be a little bit like trying to swim upstream. Everything in our system seems to be geared towards making more money, competing with each other, buying more stuff, and there's not a lot that facilitates us caring for the world around us and caring for one another. You can do it, but you have to try really hard, and you will probably have to compromise. We're rewinding right back to Israelites trying to stay righteous within Babylon and to adhere to the system that they knew was good when they were stuck as individuals within a system that did not align with their values. There's this great saying that my brother has too, because as an individual within the system, what do you call the person who wins the rat race? Well, they're a rat. So we need an alternate system. We need something that can help people step aside. And this is where Father Leon and I had a dream. We had a dream about a community that would help facilitate good living, that would help facilitate us as we work together to live as the people that God wants us to be. A place that was dedicated to life-giving, loving relationships, so that we could live out these twin calls. We hear from Jesus that we are to love one another as God has loved us. We've also heard from God that we have been placed here in God's creation, which is good, to tend and serve the land. So we have a role here to be a source of life to the people around us and to be a source of life to the environment around us. It is a beautiful vision for humans. And we can it's a call to do better. We can do better. But I think we need to work together for this. So Father Leon and I would like to, with the help of the diocese and with your help and your support, to establish this place. It could be a place to go so that you could take a break and recharge from the busyness of your urban life and all the compromises that entails and all the unhealthy choices that we are forced to make in our lives, and all the ways in which we feel like we need to walk by those that require our care. This can be a place in which we can have the time to do this and where our community could facilitate spending great loving experiences with each other, caring for the poor, and caring for the land around us, and really living out. There's this great idea that we don't actually need lots of stuff to be happy, that the best things in life are actually experiences, positive experiences we have with other people. And we want to develop a physical place in which you can have these experiences. So this working Anglican farm, an agro-ecosystem, for those of you that might use that vocabulary, we have dubbed the Green Abbey. So I look forward to sharing more of our ideas around the Green Abbey, for the sort of ethos and theology that undergirds it. I look forward to sharing sort of our ethical recommendations for the different ways in which we can participate in our lives and retain our integrity. And I look forward to building this place with your help. So in the future, we'll share more. I encourage you to hit the subscribe button on our YouTube page so that as Father Leon and I put out more videos, you can keep abreast of what we're up to and what we're thinking, and engage us in the comments section, or shoot us an email or give us a ring or something. So for now, I will sign off and say goodbye and God bless. And as the angels always say whenever they're delivering news that God is at work, fear not. With God with us, we can boldly walk into our future together.